Welcome back to Beans and Leaves. Grab your favorite hot beverage and get comfy as we discuss pop culture with a queer intersectional lens. We're your hosts, Sid, they, them pronouns, and Chris, he, him pronouns. We're recording on Leap Day, which is also Black History Month, so happy Black History Month.
Hell yeah. So it's been basically a full year since our last episode.
Sorry.
Yeah, life shit happens, you know? Oh, thank God this isn't YouTube. I already sweared within the first minute and a half.
Demonetized.
Fuck. No, so it's been basically a full year, but we're back at school. We got some shit going on.
So many projects.
So many projects. So many life updates and cool media that's happened between now and then. So let's just get into it. Let's get a lightning round going.
Quick fire updates.
Yes, go.
I got top surgery over summer. It was awesome. No titties now.
Woo! Woo!
Woo!
Wish I had one of those like New Year's noisemakers. Edit one of those in for me right now.
You got it.
All right, cool. Thanks, future Chris. I built a new computer. That was a lot of fun.
So many lights.
I know, it's
so
very
pretty.
It's rainbow and pink and I love it.
So pretty.
Yeah. Just stinks because the desk I have right now, I have to like put it against the desk so I don't get to see the lights.
The desk's too small.
I know they're there. It fills my soul inside to know that they're there.
You can see it light up when it's dark.
True. Nightly raves when I'm doing homework at 1 a.m.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that has delayed us is this pressure to kind of figure out our structure right away with the show. There's been a lot of behind the scenes pressure for that.
Pressure from ourselves. There's no one else.
Yeah,
it's
it's all internal pressure. It's one of those things where we had an intro episode. We're like, we don't have to figure everything out. We're just going to talk about ourselves for a while. And that was super easy. That episode was super long and we could have easily talked about ourselves way more. But now that we're shifting gears and talking about what we said we're going to talk about, oh
Panic
no.
mode.
Anxiety. What? I have to make decisions?
Yuck.
No, thank you.
Don't want that.
No, thank you. Especially because of like the topic that we're talking about and intersectional, wow. Especially with the topic that we're talking about, an intersectional framework that's very broad and it's a lot of nuances and we want to make sure we do these discussions right. But that means more anxiety. So here we are to just rip the Band-Aid off of that whole issue. And
We need to stop writing our script like an essay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not what we wanted this to be in the first place. And nobody really wants to listen to us to say, to what extent is this? And
No one wants that.
No.
I don't want that.
I got bored listening to myself say that right now. No. But I don't know. We're just idiots. We talk like this all the time, super casually. And that was kind of the point, was to just put a microphone in front of the shit that we were already saying. But
as soon as a microphone's in front of you, everything changes.
Anxiety. Oh, this audio booth has no AC. How am I supposed to have a nice conversation when I'm
sweating?
Sweating. So, forget the pressure, forget the structure. We're just going to figure it out as we go. So, thank you for listening and thank you for being patient with us while we figure out what the hell it is we're doing. Also, what our workflow is, because recording these episodes is one thing, but then also Chris has to edit them and then we have to post them and make sure that they're all ready to go. Not to mention the fact that we wanted to have them captioned, but that has not happened yet. So
it's so much work.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So much work.
It's a lot, but like it's something we want to do. We just got to make sure that we make time
eventually.
for it. Yeah, we got to make time for it.
I promise. At Future Self and all of you, it's going to happen.
We do have somebody who has graciously come forward and offered their time to caption them for us, so we just have to also follow through.
Yes.
Follow through is difficult.
Yes.
Yes. The other thing that we've been thinking of in the background is how much theory to include and not include. We like you said, we don't want this to be a research essay, and we also don't want people to misinterpret the topics. So
it's a hard balance.
Yeah, I think the strategy that we have for this episode, and we'll see how it works out and how we do it in the future, but this idea of mentioning theory by name and giving only the information that's relevant to what we're talking about, but making sure that we say who we're citing from so that if people want to do more research themselves, then they have the power to go and do
Make
that.
it interactive in a fun way.
Yeah, I don't want to give anybody homework to understand what we're talking about. We'll definitely provide enough context, but if it's something that intrigues you, we want to give the tools so that people can go forth and educate themselves.
We also have an email if you really want us to go more in depth, let us know.
I mean, I don't want to answer emails all day, but if you want me to throw sources at you, I'm super down with that. Yeah. We only have a vast library on our computers now after taking GSWS classes for 3 years now. Would have been 4 if we didn't finish so fast.
Oops.
That's how it goes. So enough with the real life updates. Let's talk about some media that's come out in the monumental hiatus that we took.
So many shows, so many games, movies.
Can that be the new jingle for this segment?
Absolutely.
All right. You have to sing it like that every time, though.
I'm just going to make a song.
Oh, okay, cool. Add a little jingle behind it in post. That's what happens when you're also the editor. You could just
I can
make
do
it
whatever
happen.
I want.
Yeah. As long as you want to put in the time, I don't really care. So since there's so many things that have come out since we've recorded our last episode, we're going to do this section also in a lightning round. But if you're interested in hearing us talk more specifically about any of these topics, please let us know on our social media, and we'll put them into ideas for future episodes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I get to start?
You get to start.
All right, let's go. Caravan Palace came out with a new album called Chronologic. It's really great. Sound and Fury is a movie and album that you can listen to on Spotify, but watch the movie version on Netflix. It's wonderful. I started watching 12 Forever. Haven't finished it, but really enjoyed what I did see. It's a TV show. Carol and Tuesday is an anime that got released on Netflix. That's wonderful. As of recording this, both parts are out. They did release them in 2 sections, but they're both out now, and it's fantastic. Steven Universe did a movie. That was wonderful. Cannon Busters we started but haven't finished. Another Netflix anime. Fruits Basket is being remade, and from what we've seen so far, that's really excellent. I haven't seen Infinity Train, but it's on my watch list. Link's Awakening came out in September, and I haven't finished playing that. Luigi's Mansion 3 came out in October, and I haven't finished playing that. Later Alligator came out near my birthday and is really cute. I've been playing River City Girls, which is a really cute game. We watched the Dark Crystal Netflix series, which was excellent.
So good.
So good. The Dora the Explorer movie was a blast.
So fun.
Untitled Goose Game is hysterical.
So good.
Worth all the memes and things that have been happening. The final Splatfest happened.
I had fun.
Yeah.
I don't remember what team I was on.
You were on Order, and I was on Chaos.
I had fun.
Yes. That was right after your top surgery.
It was. I was still like drugged up basically.
Having fun.
Playing the final Splatfest.
Hell yeah.
And now my things. Okay. A Black Lady Sketch Show, which is an HBO show. It's very funny. Kesha High Road album, very good. Orville Peck Pony album, very good. The L Word Generation Q came out on Showtime, and it's good. Surprisingly, I was a little shook. Work in Progress, another Showtime gay show. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel came back. I haven't finished it yet. Little Women movie.
Oh, that was good.
That was so good. Enjoyed that a lot. Midsummer.
Oh.
Oof. Oof.
Very good.
So good.
We didn't see it in theaters, did we?
No.
No, we didn't.
I bought it and then we watched it.
It was still really good.
So good. We watched Knives Out separately, but very good.
Oh, yeah. Loved that.
We watched Underwater together.
That was a good movie.
That was really good. I liked those creatures
Yeah.
and the sounds. Ooh, okay.
If you like any of the Cloverfield movies, please go see Underwater. Good creatures. That's my connection.
Good creatures. Okay.
That's my connecting thread. Good creatures.
Good creatures. Okay. Another season of Sex Education came out on Netflix. Good. And then my big update is I listened to a podcast called Into the Twilight. They talk about vampire things. And I made a very dumb movie list on Letterboxd inspired by them. And they not called me out. They shouted me out. They kind of called me out.
Depends on the tone of what you're going for.
Yeah.
Called out, shout out, same thing.
Same. On their episode 151 titled Horny for Dick Wolf.
What a good legacy for you to have.
I know. They loved it. I loved it. It was so much fun. If y'all want I can just post it to our Twitter. I don't care. I'm going to post that movie list to our Twitter.
Do it.
Yes. I also found a vampire movie at Dollar Tree. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's the Jeffersons or something.
Something like that. It's like a name of a family or something.
Yeah, but it's like tagline is Twilight meets Tarantino.
Good
and
Lord.
I don't know what that means, and I'm scared. That's my update.
You're going to make me watch that, aren't you?
God, no. I'm not even going to watch that.
We're just going to laugh about it and move on.
Yes.
Well, anyways, thank you to the Twilight people.
Thank you.
You made him very happy.
Yes. Now here's your shout out. They're incredible.
Yes. For the 3 people who listen to our podcast, go listen to their podcast
Go listen to
too.
them.
Okay, are you ready for the main discussion?
Are you?
Yes, no, maybe. Let's
Let's
go.
do it.
Yeah, fuck it. So what is our topic for this episode? Do you know?
Atla.
But what about it?
More specifically, Sokka. And character growth and masculinity.
Hell yeah. Everybody loves Sokka.
Also, before we really get started, it was Avatar: The Last Airbender's 15th anniversary recently.
Yes, I think so.
Yes, we posted it. I should know this. I posted this.
It immediately, because we've had this episode planned since the first episode finished.
Quite literally.
We had all that time to do this episode
and
release it on time.
And yet we didn't.
Here we are.
Don't mind us.
We even posted on Twitter when we were testing these mics about a month ago. We should have recorded it then.
Oops.
We needed to rework the script, but at least we did test it and find out that it was a disorganized mess.
Yes.
So here's the organized mess version. So before we get into things, I just want to warn everybody that this discussion really relies on the fact that you have seen Atla before. So if you haven't seen the show, please, 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 please stop the episode. Go watch the series. As a person who loves the show and just wants you to enjoy it for yourself, but also you're not going to know what's happening. So this is your warning. We're also going to spoil a lot of things. Sokka isn't, this discussion, since it's about Sokka, isn't all about like every major plot point, but we will hit a lot of them and assume that you have seen them. So please go watch the show. It's fantastic. All right, now we can talk about it.
For those of you who don't know, Avatar: The Last Airbender aired between 2005 and 2008 on Nickelodeon. It's anime inspired but aired in the West.
The show has 3 seasons following a typical 3-act structure. And so what we're going to talk about in this episode is Sokka's character arc throughout those 3 seasons. So to summarize his character arc before we get into it, he goes from a young, overconfident, and headstrong teen, early teen. I would say he's
early teen.
He's one of those, like, I don't know. Their ages are kind of vague, but he's probably like between 13 and 15, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Over the course of the series as well.
For sure.
So he goes from this overconfident, headstrong teen to a humble, dedicated leader. And that's what we're going to talk about, is that transition based on the things that happened to him over the 3 seasons, but as well as like his own internal growth, because, you got internal factors and external factors. So starting with season 1, Sokka embodies the traits of hegemonic masculinity as well as insecurity and internalized misogyny.
Would you like to explain what hegemonic masculinity is?
Sure. Do I have to do it off the top of my head?
You can look it up if you want to.
I should probably have the actual definition. Hegemonic masculinity is defined as a practice that legitimizes men's dominant position in society and justifies the subordination of the common male population and women and other marginalized way of being a man.
What's your summary of that?
Yeah, the Wikipedia, that was too much. Basically, it is this idea that men are at the top of the patriarchy, but on top of that is this very specific idea of what it takes to be a man, and that's where toxic masculinity and some of those ideas come in.
Yes. It's a quote-unquote idealized version of a man that is also literally impossible to reach.
Yeah, and it's purposefully impossible to
Yes.
reach because it keeps people always trying to perform up to the standard.
Yes.
There's your learning for today. So Sokka's arc in season 1 is all about learning empathy for others, respect for the women in his life, as well as the non-traditional masculinities, such as what Aang exhibits as being an air nomad. So the best example of this is in season 1 during the Kyoshi Warriors episode. There's a lot that happens to Sokka in this episode that challenges his worldview of what a stereotypical hero should look like, but the moment that sticks out to me in that episode as being most important is this moment where Sokka is wearing the Kyoshi Warrior uniform for the first time, and Suki is talking to him about what it symbolizes and all these like strength and good qualities that he can exhibit, and Aang comes by and makes a joke about him wearing a dress, and it kind of deflates the moment. And this still really sticks with me to this day as being frustrating, because instead of playing this for laughs, they could have made this a really important moment, teaching moment for kids about how his growth. It was just the cycle of his arc condensed into about 30 seconds, but then they completely undermined it and let the wind out of the moment. And it's just very frustrating, because here you have this character who's attempting to grow and has this opportunity to do that for the first time, and then this person that he respects and trusts and is his friend comes along and just kind of takes that away from him. But as much as that is frustrating to me from from a story standpoint, it makes sense because it's really early on in the season and he needs to learn how to stand up for himself and his own ideals.
He can't grow that fast.
Yeah, that takes all the fun out of it. By having this moment where his peers kind of look down on him, even Aang, who is non-traditionally masculine in a lot of ways, for him to make that jab at Sokka, really, it takes a hit to his ego. But later on in the series, and even later on in the season, he learns to let go of that ego. So it's a good teaching moment. It frustrates me, but it's a good teaching moment.
It's a starting point.
Yeah, you got to start from somewhere. Also in season 1, he's under a lot of pressure that's both internal and external. Sokka is very similar to a lot of growing boys who struggle to grow up really quickly and become quote-unquote real men. So this is this idea that in society, men are supposed to take care of a lot of things for a lot of different people who they view as subordinate. And in order to do that, you have to grow up faster and you have to take on more and more responsibility. And Sokka, especially with being a young boy in a war, has a lot of pressure put onto him immediately to take care of his whole tribe while all the men in his life leave to go off to combat. And he puts a lot of stress and anxiety onto himself, which is seemingly external, but is also a lot of him accepting that that's what he should do and taking that on versus rejecting it and doing his own thing. From early on in the series, one of Sokka's most consistent traits is that he's quick to admit his mistakes and learn from them, which is really cool to show that so early on in the series, because that's very counter to the masculine standards of always being right. And even if you're wrong, never admitting that you're wrong.
Right.
So from the beginning of the series, Sokka has his own internal compass that says, I'm not right and I need to learn from it, but also if I admit that, I've been told that that's weak and I don't want to do that. And so he has this kind of battle going on within himself. But that's where he's at in season 1.
Great starting point.
Yeah, not a bad starting place for a character. We're also glossing over a lot of things within Sokka of his use as a comedic side character in the series, and how that can kind of, like in the Kyoshi Warriors episode, undermine some of the things he says, or he will often just make jokes in a situation rather than adding something that would be more emotionally nuanced, more like Katara's character. But as we get through the discussion, I think it's also, I think these are still critical elements of his character and they make him who he is, and it kind of shows how he uses humor to cope with things. But we can get into that as we keep going. In season 2, a lot of what he's dealing with is jealousy, learning to trust his instincts, and this idea of brains versus brawn. So typically in a 3-act structure, the second act is where you get your most intense conflict. You get these moments that really change the characters and put them close to or at their lowest point, so that you can spend the third season or the third arc growing them back up in order to meet the final challenge. So Sokka, based on these ideas of other men in his life, values logic over his own emotions. There's a point in season 2 during the Day of Black Sun where they invade the Fire Nation during a solar eclipse, and Sokka blames himself for succumbing to Azula's trick because of a lapse of his emotions, and he kind of equates that to a lack of control. So as much as Sokka blames himself in this moment for his lack of control over his emotions, what's really important to notice about this scene is the fact that Azula recognizes Sokka as the biggest threat in this group and chooses to target him and his emotions over Aang and Toph, who are also with him at the time.
This is also seen in a different episode this season where it's all of Team Aang against Azula, cornering her, and they all attack at one time, but she blocks Sokka's boomerang first before focusing on all of the benders coming at her, which I think is a clear example of, I don't know what.
It just really enforces the fact that Sokka is a threat to be reckoned with, even though the show doesn't spend a lot of time focusing on it. There are a lot of ways that the show...
Because he is a non-bender.
Yeah, and that's common throughout the show, not even just with Sokka, but also Suki, who's not a bender. There's these characters who exist on the main team who are given tasks that aren't related to bending, but they're also not shunned for not being able to bend, even though a lot of Sokka's internal shame for not being able to bend or not being a quote-unquote good enough warrior to compensate for that, that definitely plays into his arc a lot. So the fact that Azula recognizes him as a threat, and she's the biggest threat in the series...
Basically immediately.
Yeah. It shows in a non-overt way that Sokka is definitely somebody you don't want to mess with, and definitely somebody she doesn't want to mess with. And if she can get the upper hand over him, she kind of controls the whole team. Because
he's a warrior.
He's also the moral compass of the team in a lot of ways. I don't want to say moral compass. I'd say that would more be Aang, but he's the strategist. He's the one who has the bigger picture. He has the end goals in mind, and he doesn't let his emotions get caught up in the moment. Very often, there are still some times where, because he's human, he does have these weaknesses. He's also a teenager. Yeah, they have emotions, man. We all have emotions.
Their emotions are heightened too.
True.
Especially during our wartime. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how these kids are coping. They all need therapy.
I don't think they are.
No, I don't think they are either.
T?
Yeah, Iroh.
Just Iroh. Iroh is the therapist of the show.
Yeah. But it just reinforces that Sokka is important as a character as well as a member of the team, and even if he doesn't think so, essentially.
Very valued member.
Yes. During season 2, he also takes his losses incredibly hard and tries to overcompensate, like we were talking about, to fix his own mistakes. This starts off as being an insecurity in season 1, but around season 2 we really start to see it as more of a positive trait. He's less trying to overcompensate and prove himself, and he's more taking this idea of being a good adaptable fighter and running with that, and showing, especially in the invasion on the solstice, their plans change. The Fire Lord isn't where he's supposed to be, and they're able to adapt pretty quickly thanks to Sokka's guidance. So he's starting to come into his own as an individual as well as a warrior. Definitely in this season. And a leader, especially. The main part of the season that I really want to focus on, though, that I think is really important to Sokka's character is his foil, which I would say is Jet. So if you don't know what a foil is a character in a story that is similar in a lot of ways to one of your main characters, but takes a different path and shows what their path could be if they had different morals. So it kind of reinforces the growth of your main character, but through a different lens.
Tethered.
No, not the tethered. Different. So if Jet is Sokka's foil, then we look at this episode titled Jet. Sokka is being pitted against somebody who embodies all of the traits that he wants, but his morals are completely opposite to Sokka. So in season 1 and the first half of season 2, a lot of what Sokka is trying to do is he's trying to be this extremely masculine leader of the group. He starts off the episode Jet saying that he is the leader of their group and having Aang and Katara laugh at him, basically. And they do this whole bit where they poke fun at his instincts. But in this episode, he learns how important it is to be true to himself, aka his instincts, and stand up for what he believes in, and how that is a much healthier version of masculinity than what Jet is doing. The show really disguises this interaction between the two of them as jealousy, which I think is partly true, but it develops into a deeper conflict and comments on the fact that blindly following a leader who is masculine without questioning their intentions especially a leader like Jet, who is very manipulative, charismatic, and those are definitely two traits that hegemonic masculinity does not condemn. Sokka is really able to prove himself as being the better, more democratic leader, as well as just having his morals in line in a war where good morals aren't necessarily what's going to win you individual battles. So Jet's whole focus is this revenge of his parents being killed by Fire Nation soldiers and doing whatever it takes to take them out, including sacrificing a town of Earth Kingdom people. Sokka, knowing that that's wrong, evacuates everybody, including the Fire Nation soldiers, because he would rather save innocent people than take out a few enemies. So that's a really good episode to show how far he's come in the series. Also, it shows him that masculinity isn't everything. He doesn't need to always be performing to the standards that he holds himself to, and those are often the moments where he is the strongest.
A very important lesson.
Very good episode. As much as Jet really annoys me.
Grinds my gears.
Yeah, definitely. He is a very grating character to watch. He's really important to Sokka's narrative.
For sure.
Also in this season, he is, going back to earlier where we were talking about Sokka and not dealing with his emotions, with the conflict with Azula, he really does deal and talk with his emotions with Suki in this season, because Suki and Sokka's relationship is really starting to develop at this point, but still having this like sense of loss and grief after losing Yue at the end of the first season. It's really refreshing to hear Sokka voice those emotions in his relationship with Suki. So there's a moment where Suki leans in to kiss Sokka for the first time, and Sokka's the one who pulls away, and basically he says like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not over this past relationship. I need time to like process. I really love you and I really care about you, but here's my boundary. And holy shit, revolutionary.
A boundary?
Oh
my goodness.
A teenage like boy in media setting healthy boundaries when it comes to relationships. Crazy
concept.
God bless Atla. Revolutionary. So that's where we leave off Sokka's character at season 2. It's a lot of him and his internal conflicts versus his external, and how he's kind of battling in himself with these expectations that he thought he had for himself, and then finding out that they don't actually hold up in the real world. He also gets some moments in season 2 that we're not going to go into really specifically, but moments where he gets to interact with his dad for the first time in years, and that's a lot of where he thought his dad had this expectation of him, and then when he actually gets to talk to him, that doesn't hold up, and so there's a lot of growth for Sokka in season 2, and a lot of like, he's very primed for the beginning of season 3 to really take the lead and find out what style of leader he is, especially after the failure of the invasion, which was his quote-unquote moment to prove himself, and it doesn't go well. But what does go well is the fact that he's able to adapt and get some people out of there rather than everybody. He takes that incredibly hard, but it's a good moment. Season 3, Sokka is definitely more self-actualized. He really trusts his teammates. He's supportive, and he's taken his identity as being an integral part of the team rather than trying to control it and put too much pressure on himself to lead everybody. He starts to trust everybody's ideas. Season 3, though, is where you start to see more of those insecurities because of his lack of bending, and that really shows up in the episode, and I don't remember the exact name, but it's something like The Sword Master, where he's missing this example of masculinity in his life now that his father is back in jail, and he has this crushing defeat in season 2 of losing the invasion, and there's this opportunity for Sokka to go and learn to be a sword fighter from Master Piandao.
He also hasn't had a master yet. All
Yes.
of the other characters have
That's very
learned
true.
how to grow within their own self, basically.
And their own skill set.
Within their own skills through other masters, but he has not had that yet until now.
Yeah, and that's way later in the season, or in the series, like you said.
Way later.
Yeah, because the whole series is about Aang mastering all these things from Katara, from Toph, from other people.
And through that, Katara gets to meet other waterbenders and all
Katara
of that.
masters her skills, and Toph masters her skills on her own through inventing metal bending like a badass.
Super cash.
Yeah, just super casually. Dealing with her whole shit. But Sokka was missing this for a long time, and so Pian Dao becomes a much needed example of that masculine standard, but as well as like a healthy version of that, and a person who is a master in the thing that he wants to be interested in, rather than learning lessons through his friends who learn more specific lessons tailored to himself. He gets to learn that specific tailored lesson, which is huge for his character. He makes a freaking space sword out of a meteorite.
So cool.
So cool. It's really the tragedy of the series is when he loses it. I miss that sword. At least he loses it in the final battle, so it's not gone that long, but still a tragedy.
Still sucks.
Yeah. But having this healthy, quote-unquote father figure who's not his father, but it's just the masculine person that he can look up to, who is a warrior, but also doesn't compromise on things like artistic skills, things like having empathy towards others. That's basically the whole like White Lotus order as a whole, which is an organization that all the old people in the show belong to. Iroh, Pian Dao, the very annoying Master Paku, the water bender master who I don't like. Boomy's one.
All the old folks.
All the old folks, but there's such a great like example for these kids to learn from, is this idea of we've survived a long time, and there's this element of your elders have this knowledge to hand down to you, but also they love what the kids are doing. They're like, hell yeah, revolution, go get it.
Hell yeah.
We're here to support you. We're here for this. But how do we help you to be the best versions of yourselves rather than turning you into us? And I really appreciate that nuance.
Very important.
Anyway, so Sokka switching from trying and failing to be the brawn of the group. Now in this season, he's more taking into his role of brains, which he is much more talented at. So rather than trying to be the quote-unquote most skilled fighter, and even the brawniest, definitely he lost that contest as soon as Toph came on the team. Like, he cannot compete with her.
Like you said already, he's a strategist.
Absolutely.
That's brains.
Absolutely.
My guy.
And he really, rather than trying to be this like macho man who has all these brawns and is strong and charges into a battle with Zuko with a boomerang at the beginning of season 1, a bit hot-headed.
Just a little.
But now he knows how to be calculated and how to master like the advantages that their team has over their enemies, and how to make sure everybody's skills are being used in a way that nobody's really left out or left behind, in a sense of like they're not leaving out any skills that could help them and be advantageous. And that's really, really good to see in this whole season, because they're in the Fire Nation for so much of season 3. They're trying to be undercover and trying to help Aang heal from his injury at the end of season 2, and how to plan on actually getting to defeat the Fire Lord before the comet comes and all of that. There's a lot of strategy in this season, and Sokka's really the one who helps to carry them through and up to this big moment, despite him being a little bit controlling over it with the whole like comedy, poking fun at his like intense schedules and things like that. He's kind of let go of that more by season 3, and he's more willing to adapt and take these side trips, like Aang's like mini vacations in season 1, where they're not necessarily playing toward the bigger goal, but that doesn't mean they're worthless. They like his mini vacation at the library is a huge deal, especially for him. And his strategy moments, like that's where he learns about the solar eclipse, and that's a huge moment for him, and how he is beneficial to their team and the war as a whole. So that's really come full circle, and he's really at that point in season 3, which is really great to see. So the culmination of Sokka's arc across the whole series is trying and failing to live up to this masculine war hero that he thinks he needs to be on behalf of his tribe, and that's how small his world is at the beginning of the series. And then instead using his actual skills to be a successful part of a unit instead of this quote-unquote lone wolf. So now that we've gone through each season individually, some of the interesting moments to consider Sokka's arc as a whole and Sokka's character as a whole is we've talked about this individually in the different seasons, is he is still a kid, and how important that is to not only his character but the whole cast of characters. Their age is incredibly important to where they start the series, but also how they're able to grow and what that shows then to their audience.
Mm-hmm. He's also a person of color. There is
all
zero white people in this show.
Yeah. Say most, but no, it's all of them.
Zero white people in this. They are all some form of people of color.
And they're all some version of specifically like Asian communities. So
yes. Since Sokka is a AMAB person, or assigned male at birth, and a masculine aligned person, and a person of color, seeing that representation is mind-boggling, low-key.
Especially for him being that young, too.
And him being that young. Like, being a teen, and a younger teen, too. With all of this, like, character growth and these qualities that he's presenting, and not being afraid to share his feelings, is so wonderful to see, and representation of someone that looks like you. It's good.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. It's just good.
Well,
it's good rep.
He's good. He's an uncommon rep for that group.
He is uncommon representation, and he's a very important representation that just needs to be seen in general.
Right.
Especially for that group to see themselves reflected back and being like, oh, it's okay to have these specific qualities because he has those, and he's a dope-ass leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my thoughts.
Hell yeah.
So all of that is a very long rant or tangent saying that Sokka's character growth is very important, not only for this show, but for the representation that it holds.
Yes, exactly. He's a great character, and he is a character who, despite being in the core group of the series and spending literally, I think, every moment that there is on Aang, plus some, because the show starts with Sokka and Katara. He's the longest seen character aside from Katara in the series, and to have that be at the center but not be the focus, I think he's important to talk about. And when you think about talking about Atla, one of the first characters you think about talking about is Aang or Katara, but I really wanted to focus on Sokka because he has all these traits, and it's such a good topic to go into. And then as well as for the reasons that you were talking about, like he's great representation, and he's just a fun character, and he handles these like hard life moments so well. Even when he doesn't, he then grows before the next.
He learns from things.
Yeah, crazy character
he
growth.
He reflects on himself and was like, wow, let me learn from this.
I am a bit of an asshole.
I should mayhaps change.
Yes. And then all those fun moments that we love him for, too. The boomerang joke, Sparky Boom Man, this whole sequence of him doing haiku in the poetry lounge.
He's all of this and hilarious.
Yeah, and that also, like, we didn't analyze any of that, but it's absolutely integral to who he is. He's a goofball. He's the comedy of the group, and he really keeps their spirits up in times that are hard, especially with how heavy the show is. Without that comic relief, you tend to forget that they're as young as they are. And Aang is also definitely comic relief. I'm not saying that it's just Sokka, but that is the role that he falls into more often than the other characters, especially in the latter half of the series, because as Aang is forced out of his role as a goofball, it then falls on Sokka to be like the lighter tone of the show. But yeah, I love this series so much.
It's good.
I think we talked about it in the last episode, but I watch it every summer, and I adore it. I think it's great. I'm glad that you have now rewatched it with me last summer, and we will continue to do that until I die, basically.
Yes.
But thank you guys for letting us talk about it. It was very interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people also love this show like we do and have thoughts about it. There's also so much analysis out there in the world about this show. We are not the first people to talk about it in depth like this.
There's full podcasts on this show.
Absolutely. Beyond Bending Podcast is one of the people who supports us directly and has really done a good job of shouting us out. So please go listen to them if you want more Atlas-specific content. And then, like we said earlier, with our long list of interests just from this past year, but Animal Crossing is coming out, man. I'd love to talk about that.
Soon.
Yeah, we got so many things that we want to talk about, but please let us know what you're interested in hearing from us. And if this more scripted, more focused format works, if not, if it's boring,
please let us know.
Yeah.
We're just testing things out at the moment.
Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. And we do have thoughts, and we definitely want to keep them structured in a way, but
it can be a smaller part of the episodes.
Absolutely. We can make it more digestible. Also, it was kind of probably a big ask on our part to start with Atla because it is such this, like, we love it so much.
We did that to ourselves.
Yeah, we don't want to misrepresent why it is important and how much it means to us. I mean, the 15th anniversary.
15.
I've now officially at least seen the show 15 times, if not
The show can
more.
Almost drive.
Yeah, it really can. And so therefore there's this huge legacy that we kind of had to make sure we were respecting. And I hope that you guys enjoyed our thoughts. They're not necessarily unique. A lot of people have said what we have said, but it's important to us that we share our perspective on it as well and give you some of those tools of masculinity theory with hegemony and things like that and how to relate characters like this to what's happening in the real world. That's kind of the focus of our podcast. So just thank you for listening to us, basically.
Also, sorry it's taken so long.
Yeah. And because this was such a big ask, we'll make sure the next thing we talk about is very lighthearted so we can do this more often and figure out our rhythm rather than annual podcasts where we then have to reteach ourselves how to talk in front of a microphone because
it's been rough.
Whatever the timestamp on this episode ends up being, we've spent twice as long in the recording booth. Guaranteed.
It's a hot mess.
And it's hot in here.
And it's hot.
Because we have to turn the AC off. So, yeah, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Thank you, basically, was the summary of all that. We appreciate you guys listening to us ramble.
Thank you so much for sticking with us as we figure out what this podcast will be, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation. You can follow the show at beans_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and send your comments and questions to our email, beansandleavespod@gmail.com.
Our theme music was created by Andrew Pena, a new upcoming composer who is always looking for new projects and collaborations. You can follow him on Instagram at AndyFast1. Also, shout out to our local digital media center for providing the recording studio for us to use. We're still at an inconsistent schedule, so be sure to follow our social media accounts for updates. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Bye.